Welcome back, focused learners, to another explainer. Let's just dive right into it. If you've ever tried to untangle the massive, chaotic web of Greek mythology, you know it can feel a bit like trying to map out the most complicated, violent, and honestly dramatic family tree in human history. Today, our goal is to distill thousands of years of ancient storytelling, from the blind poet Homer to the great playwrights of Athens, into one continuous, absolutely fascinating narrative. We're going to look at exactly how these ancient people made sense of their universe.
To get a solid grip on this multi-generational saga, we'll follow a clear chronological roadmap. We're looking at the dawn of the cosmos, the Olympian rule, mankind and the underworld, the age of heroes, and finally, the inescapability of fate.
All right, starting right off with part 1, Dawn of the Cosmos.
You see, this whole universe kicks off with a major recurring theme: violent, generational overthrow. I mean, it literally all started with chaos, just a massive void. Out of that came the Earth, Gaia, and the sky, Uranus. But Uranus, not exactly father of the year. He locked his kids away. So his son, the Titan Cronus, overthrew him in a pretty brutal fashion, actually by castrating him. But you know how it goes, power corrupts. Cronus became just as paranoid as his dad. Warned by a prophecy that his own kid would overthrow him, Cronus went with a truly terrifying solution. He just swallowed his own children whole, literally the moment they were born.
Obviously, this crazy cycle of violence had to reach a breaking point. And it did, because one child of Cronus survived, Zeus. His mother, Rhea, managed to hide him away. When Zeus finally grew up, he came back, forced his dad to regurgitate his siblings, yeah, pretty gross, and ignited an all-out war against the Titans. And this wasn't just some quick skirmish. This was a brutal 10-year cosmic war. Zeus actually teamed up with these monstrous hundred-handed giants and the Cyclops, who, by the way, forged his legendary thunderbolt. Ultimately, Zeus pulled off the win, casting the Titans all the way down into the agonizing depths of Tartarus.
Which brings us to part 2, the Olympian rule.
So, with the Titans locked up, the cosmos basically had new management. The victorious brothers had to divide the spoils of the universe, and they did it by literally drawing lots. Zeus got the sky and became the king of the gods, Poseidon claimed the oceans, wielding his trident to stir up earthquakes, and Hades, well, he got the grim task of ruling the underworld and all the spirits of the dead. Together with their siblings and kids, they formed the 12 Olympians. They ruled from the peak of Mount Olympus, and let me tell you, they demanded absolute, unquestioning respect from absolutely everything beneath them.
Now, if there is one single word you need to remember from this explainer, it's this: hubris. It basically means fatal arrogance, especially when mortals think they can challenge the gods. And what happened to mortals who thought they were as good as the gods? It was never pretty. Take Arachne. She boasted she was a better weaver than the goddess Athena. So Athena beat her senseless and turned her into the very first spider. Or Queen Niobe, who actually mocked the goddess Leto for only having 2 kids. The gods responded by slaughtering all 14 of Niobe's children and turning her into a weeping rock. The lesson here is pretty brutal. Know your place.
Moving right along to part 3, mankind and the underworld.
While the gods were busy up there ruling, a titan named Prometheus was actually busy creating us. He crafted man from clay, but we were kinda weak, so he flat out stole the fire of the gods to give us civilization. Well, Zeus was absolutely furious at this theft. To punish mankind, Zeus ordered the creation of the first woman, Pandora. And this set off a massive, devastating chain reaction. Fast forward a bit, and humanity became so wicked and arrogant during the Bronze Age that Zeus literally washed his hands of the whole thing. He unleashed a massive global flood that wiped out almost everyone on Earth, saving only 2 survivors.
But let's rewind a quick second to Pandora, because her story is so essential. I mean, it gives us the modern phrase, opening Pandora's box. See, she was given a sealed jar and told to never ever open it. But Zeus cleverly gave her insatiable curiosity too. When she inevitably took a peek, she unleashed greed, disease, and old age into a previously perfect world, totally ending the golden age of humanity. By the time she managed to slam it shut, only one thing was left inside: hope. It's really the ultimate ancient Greek explanation for why we suffer so much, but also, why we manage to endure it.
So humans now had to deal with disease, old age, and a drastically shortened lifespan. Which naturally begs the question, what actually awaited the fragile souls of these mortals after death? Well, the Greeks had a very specific and honestly, a highly bureaucratic answer to that.
Getting into the underworld was a super strict procedure. First, your soul was guided by Hermes down to the river Styx. You actually had to pay Charon, this terrifying ferryman, a coin. which, by the way, is exactly why the Greeks buried their dead with a coin under their tongue. Next up, you had to somehow sneak past Cerberus, the monstrous three-headed guard dog. And finally, you stood trial before 3 judges. They reviewed every single action of your life to figure out exactly what your final eternal destination was going to be.
Depending on how that trial went, you'd end up in one of 3 completely distinct places. Most regular folks just went to the Fields of Asphodel, which was kind of this neutral, wandering, memory-wiped existence. The great heroes? They got to go to Elysium, a beautiful, eternal paradise. But the wicked? They went to Tartarus. This is the place where Hades crafted these agonizing, incredibly ironic punishments, like Sisyphus. He tricked the gods, so he has to roll a boulder up a hill forever, only to watch it fall right back down. Or Tantalus. He stole from Zeus, so he's stuck standing in water he can never drink, right under fruit he can never reach. Brutal.
All right, that brings us to part 4, the Age of Heroes.
Despite all this doom and gloom, some mortals actually fought back against the darkness. But being a hero in Greek myth meant you were pretty much locked into a specific and usually tragic blueprint. First off, you almost always had divine parentage, usually thanks to one of Zeus's endless affairs. Then, you'd get sent on these totally impossible tasks. Think of Jason gathering the Argonauts to sail across the world for the Golden Fleece, or Perseus having to behead the snake-haired Medusa using a mirrored shield. But honestly, the biggest part of being a hero meant you were just constantly dodging the petty, jealous wrath of the gods.
And nobody embodied this tragic blueprint better than Heracles. You've probably heard of his legendary 12 labors, right? Well, they weren't just for glory. They were actually a grueling penance. See, Zeus's wife Hera absolutely hated Heracles because he was the product of her husband's infidelity. She literally drove Heracles temporarily insane, tricking him into murdering his own family. Just awful. To atone for that, he had to complete these 12 impossible tasks, stuff like slaying the 9-headed Hydra and physically dragging Cerberus out of the underworld. So a lot of this legendary heroism was actually born from unimaginable tragedy.
Which leads us to our final section, part 5, the inescapability of fate.
All of this drama and tragedy leads us directly to the one overarching rule of this entire mythology. Now, you might be thinking Zeus is the most powerful force in the universe, right? Well, actually, no. It's these 3 older goddesses, the Fates. Clotho spins the thread of a life, Lachesis measures its length and plots out every single event, and Atropos, who is definitely the most terrifying of the bunch, she cuts the thread when it's time to die. Even the mighty Zeus could not overrule the threads woven by the Fates. Their word was absolute, inescapable destiny. So, what happens when you try to fight that destiny? Well, just look at the absolute psychological nightmare of Oedipus. King Laius got a prophecy saying his own son would kill him. To prevent it, he abandons his infant son Oedipus to die in the wilderness. But Oedipus survives, grows up, and eventually gets into a road rage dispute with an old man, killing him. Yep, that man was his true father, Laius. Oedipus then unknowingly marries the widowed queen, his own mother, Jocasta. It's wild, right? By trying so hard to outrun the prophecy, they literally caused it to happen.
And we see the exact same thing play out with the hero Perseus. His grandfather, King Acrisius, actually threw Perseus into the sea as a baby because of a prophecy saying his grandson would kill him. But Perseus survives, grows up, slays Medusa, and becomes this legendary hero. Years later, he's at an athletic tournament, and he throws a stray discus that flies into the crowd and accidentally strikes an old man dead. And guess who that man was? King Acrisius. The prophecy was fulfilled before Perseus was even born. This really brings us to the core moral takeaway of the entire mythology. No mortal can outrun their fate. I mean, think about it. From the Titan Cronus trying to swallow his kids to stop his own downfall, all the way to the great Heracles, eventually meeting his painful end through a poisoned robe that was orchestrated by a dying centaur years earlier. The strings were pulled long before the actual events ever unfolded.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question to ponder. If even the almighty, lightning-wielding gods of Olympus are bound by the threads of the 3 fates, who is truly in control of the universe? Do we actually have free will, or are we just walking down a path that was already measured out for us? It's a massive question that the ancient Greeks wrestled with thousands of years ago, and honestly one that still captivates us today. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep wondering and keep learning.